Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Please write in the chat if you are ready to roll. Hey, great to see you. My name is Marcin Stanowski. I'm a member of IATEFL Poland. In Polish, it's Stowarzyszenie Nauczycieli Języka Angielskiego, the Association of Teachers of English in Poland. We are working teachers. We are just like you, but we decided to get together to simply improve education in Poland, to share ideas, to share passion for teaching. And we are so happy that you are here. This is our sixth so far webinar for IATEFL Poland. Last time we had the pleasure to host Evan Frendo, who was talking about the assessment in business. Today we've got a great pleasure to host Elżbieta Jarosz, and Elżbieta, or Ella, is a teacher trainer and an academic director at Gama College of English in Krakow, and she's also a member of Eaquals Certification Panel and active member of IATEFL Poland and PASE. She consults with schools and institutions to promote the implementation of a common European framework and the principles of good practices of teaching and assessing the language competencies. Ella is devoting her most of her life career to the quality in education and to assessment in education. She's a very, very active member of IATEFL Poland, and we are so proud to have her on board. Today's webinar, which will soon start, will be focused on implementation of effective can-do assessment approach, and it will be in line with course learning objectives and practical classroom teaching. Probably you're most aware of can-do statements, which are present in many course books, or you state them during your lessons. And Ella will talk about how valuable tool this is in the hand of an experienced teacher. We will soon have Ella with us. Yes, if you count here, probably that means that you don't have Flash installed or active. Okay. Today, for today's webinar, that's almost 100 people enrolled, and we are so happy that we've got almost 40 of people together. Let's wait just a bit. Oh, perfect! Thanks, Kinga. I'm so happy that you're ready. We'll soon start. Ella is having slight technical problems, but she's fighting with her laptop right now. We just want to tell you that the next webinar will be with Alicja Gałązka, with Professor Alicja Gałązka, and it will deal with a bit of psychology in the teaching of English. We're also planning to have the webinars throughout the whole period of holidays, July and August, so I'm sure you will find something for yourself. Don't forget that if you go to an IATEFL Poland website, you will have a chance to see what we're doing. If you check our Facebook profile, you will see that we've got just immense, awesome number of ongoing events or planned events. This period is absolutely active, and we've got more and more things to go. Soon, on the 31st of May, 1st and 2nd of June, we are hosting Hudela here in Poland, and we've got a pleasure to invite you to yet another IATEFL Poland Inspirations tour. The previous tour took place early in spring and was with Ula Kropaczewska and with Mark Andrews, of course. Please take a look also at our webpage, iatefl.org.pl, because there you can find information about the next conference in Gdańsk. As you know, IATEFL Poland conferences are the biggest, are the most exciting event in a whole continental Europe. So I hope we'll see there, and we hope that we'll see. Yes, I know Ula is awesome, true, and we hope to see you this year in Gdańsk. As I heard, we've got just right now almost 300 talks, workshops, plenaries in our program. We are now working how to choose such number of speakers that will be actually possible to maintain and to listen to during our conference. Remember, this is always the third weekend of September, this time in Gdańsk. Let me check if Ella is ready. Okay, Ella is ready. I can see. So without much hassle, we can start presenting. Ella, are you with us?
Yes, I think so. Finally, I'm terribly sorry. Just technical problems, you know, just my bad luck. What can I do? But I heard that you already introduced
I will say a few things.
Okay.
So I'm leaving you with Ella, and I'm turning my microphone off. Have a great hour. Thank you very much.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope so. Okay. I'm terribly sorry about my technical problems. Just as I said, my bad luck. I'm not sure, but Marcin has probably already told you about IATEFL Poland. I prepared 3 slides about IATEFL Poland, but you probably already have been reminded about our conferences, about SIG activities, and the publications that we have. We cooperate not only with Polish teachers' organizations, but of course with international teachers' organizations, with 31, with IATEFL International, with TESOL International. If you want to be an active member, you are most welcome to join us, and then, you know, to go to conferences. On a screen, you can see a conference in IATEFL International Conference in Manchester in 1920, and our IATEFL Poland conference this year in Gdańsk. I heard Marcin saying that IATEFL Poland conferences are biggest. We are definitely biggest in Poland and in this part of Europe. as far as I remember, the last two conferences in Krakow and in Wrocław were about 1,000 participants. I think Krakow was 1,100, Wrocław 1,200. Now we're going to have Gdańsk, very attractive location, so it'll probably be even more. So please join us. If you want to learn more, go to the web page, which I hope you can see on the screen, www.IATEFL PL, and be with us. Okay, and now the presentation. I prepared some practical ideas connected with assessment, with can-dos. I would like to share both my experience with you and experience of other schools which have started using can-do assessment. The aims of this webinar, this presentation is of course to discuss can-do assessment approach that is in line with course learning objectives, with learning aims, and to discuss can-do assessment techniques in the context of how the syllabus aims, curriculum aims, the learning aims that we would like to enact in the classroom. I mean, how to go about it, how to make ourselves or our teachers, if you are a director of studies, to teach according to can-dos. So this is basically what the presentation is going to be about. And the main focus is on assessment for learning, so-called formative assessment, not assessment of learning, because assessment for learning is just the assessment that helps both students and the teachers to decide where they are, what else they need to do with can-do descriptors. So it's not just giving marks to students, but to tell them how good they are and what else, where else they need to go to be even better. But as I said at the beginning, what I'm going to show to you is not only my experience, but the experience of a lot of schools, more than 100 of schools, which belong to the organization called Eaquals. Eaquals is an organization which accredits schools, which teach according to CEFR, which have high quality standards, and also assess according to CEFR. And I'm going to base my presentation on a series of course books which Eaquals published together with Oxford University Press. And in particular, I would like to use one of the series, one of the books called Language Course Planning, because this is where I am one of the authors and where we put all the practical tips, both for how to structure, how to plan the curriculum, syllabus and assessment. Okay. I think that I would like to start with showing you this circle. These are 6 areas that we have to think about, both when we are academic directors or teachers, when we want to prepare a course and would like to schedule it properly. So the first area is curriculum, syllabus based on learners' needs, of course. Then, of course, number 2 would be teaching resources, which we would like to have to choose properly. Then, of course, teachers' competences and teachers' qualifications are very important. If it is our qualifications, fine. If we are directors of studies, then we have to think about our teaching team qualifications. And then there's a process of teaching and learning, the process which happens in the classroom, which we would like to be in line with the syllabus, but which is difficult just to ensure that it is so, unless we have the stage 5, that is assessment of learning outcomes according to the philosophy, according to the teaching techniques specified in syllabus. And finally, of course, we need some quality assurance procedures to make sure that the whole process goes smoothly and everything has been planned and scheduled according to learners' needs. Now, course design is very much connected with assessment. If you want your teachers to teach according to CEFR, according to can-do syllabus, or if you yourself want yourself teach according to can-do syllabus, the only practical way to do it is to decide on a type of assessment that will be in line with can-do learning objectives, because otherwise you will teach the way you have got used to teach, not because you don't want to teach according to CEFR can-do, but because you do not have time to change. You have ready-made materials that you have always used, and you will just continue using them. So in fact, when CEFR was introduced, first we looked at it only as letters, A1, A2, B1, B2. And of course, there were some can-dos to go with it. But the teaching that happened in the class was just, more or less the same. And only after some time, when we discovered the assessment techniques according to CEFR, in fact, everything made sense. Obviously, when you think about course design, first of all, you have to somehow determine learners' needs. You have to make sure that the learners' needs are not only assessed at the beginning, but also during the course. And as I said, those 3 factors, learning goals, and learning goals is like syllabus that you want to teach, and then what happens in the classroom, this is teaching, learning activities, and assessment, feedback, depends what kind of assessment we want to offer, must be linked together. Otherwise, the syllabus will be just a document that has been put somewhere and is not really used in the classroom. Assessment is predetermined by language course planning. This may look a funny picture, but language course planning is a little bit like following a recipe. If you are a very good cook, a master chef, then maybe you do not need recipes. You can be just creative because you know everything. But even if you are very good, if you have a plan, if you have a recipe, it's always easier to achieve good results. And the usual challenges that we have when we start language course planning is what kind of goals, what kind of pedagogical principles we should establish, what kind of system of levels we have. If you are an individual teacher, then again, you have to have your own levels. If you do not teach for the school, but just privately for yourself, you also have to have the system of levels. You have to choose relevant teaching materials to go with the syllabus that you want to teach. And finally, you have to somehow to ensure that it is implemented in the classroom. And everything that we are discussing today is going to be related to CEFR. So there are those 4 course planning documents which are important both if you are a school or if you are an individual teacher. you must have a curriculum, and perhaps for the sake of simplicity and clarification, I use Eaquals definition of curriculum, which is, just prepared it here, which is a kind of general statement which defines the institutions or your own mission, policy, your educational philosophy, value. And in the syllabus, you put very general learning outcomes that you would like to achieve, that you would like your students to achieve. You put the skills that you want to teach, the type of courses, and generally the kind of learning experience that your students will have. Then the next document is syllabus, of course, and syllabus is just a planning document. It's a sequence of what you're going to teach, what materials you're going to use. Then it's good to have a bridge between syllabus and lesson plans. Lesson plans is what you really teach in the classroom. And this bridge is usually provided by what we call schemes of work. And schemes of work are just records of how the syllabus is taught or is going to be taught over a shorter period of time. The syllabus is usually for a semester at least, or for a year. Schemes of work can be for a week, for several weeks. And schemes of work guide the teachers. These documents are either prepared by director of studies or by teachers, but they are very helpful because they guide you. You can check whether more or less you are covering the material, or you're late, or too quick. And finally, of course, the lesson plan, the content and activity, single lesson. So all this is very important. It's step-by-step process which you need to follow. Even though we're talking about assessment, it's good to remember about these people. So first, establish your general philosophy, then of course the system of courses, levels, describe teaching methods, techniques that you're going to use, be aware of them, prepare syllabus for different courses or the course that you're going to teach, and decide on what kind of assessment procedures you're going to use. Nowadays, I think it's very rare that people just want to learn a course book and come just to be taught a language. Nowadays, people want to be taught very specific things. Therefore, almost all of us uses either philosophy that is kind of directly adopted from the CFR, or because CFR is action-oriented approach to language, we just adapt our syllabus to meet the principles, to meet these principles. Or maybe, perhaps, we just have a philosophy that coincides with CFR and we use it. Even if you are an individual teacher, you probably have some kind of layout of courses, levels, some levels, names of the courses, number of teaching hours. So all those admin things that at a school, the school will probably do for you before you start. And the teaching methods and techniques, something very important for all teachers. If you claim that you teach with can-do CFR approach, then there is a choice of these three teaching approaches that you have. Competence-based, of course, the main approach in CFR. Task-based, because usually it is activities, tasks that we want our students to do because this is what they are going to do in real life. And communication-based approach, something that we have been doing for some time already. So if we have an institution which says something like that, we supplemented the communicative objectives with the linguistic content divided into the following categories: grammar, vocabulary, writing, and functions. The result is that our syllabus include a combination of can-do statements and linguistic content. So this is a situation in. There's another example. Students and parents in our market expect to be given and use a course book. We decided, therefore, to begin with the course book in use and to link the contents to functional can-do statements, such as, for example, I can do these things in English, and traditional grammar areas, like, for example, I can use the following language items. And in this way, students and parents, of course, are able to see what they have covered, both from a theoretical point of view, from course book point of view, and from a more real-world practical point of view. So, in reality, the syllabus of both institutions will be something like that. That first, they will probably specify communicative objectives, can-do competences that the learners will acquire during the course, like here, this is A2 level, so they should be able to understand the case of simple messages and announcements, be able to participate in short social exchanges, find relevant information in very short simple text, write short simple text, such as notes, messages, simple personal letters. So this is can-do statements. And then there's language content, just traditional language content that we have always used and we should be using, we should continue to use. So we want to teach grammar, and we teach things like present simple, present continuous, etc. We teach vocabulary, and this should also find place in syllabus, maybe reading, maybe writing, maybe listening. So all kinds of things that we have been teaching more traditionally. But nowadays, I think that more and more, if not all the syllabi, include those two elements. Can-do statements, the learners will be able to, when they finish the course, and the language content. If you teach a course that is based only on that is only speaking, let's say, maybe you do not need language content. Maybe you will structure your syllabus only in terms of can-dos. But usually it is a combination of both. There is a sample syllabus template that I'm not sure is very clear here. I gave a reference to the book that you can either find on OUP page, or if you write to me, I can send perhaps a clearer sample if you are interested. And in this syllabus template, again, we have the level, we have the general course objectives, and then we have content divided into topics: vocabulary, language functions, grammar points, skills, sub-skills, intonation, pronunciation, if you want to have it, and desired outcomes, learning outcomes, what learners will be able to do, what specific real-life competences they will acquire. Now, when you have a syllabus, it's good to translate the syllabus into schemes of work. If you are a director of studies, this is very, very important, because otherwise it is very difficult to see whether all the teachers in the whole school teach the same syllabus. If you are an individual teacher, it is very helpful because it helps you to plan. So instead of having just a list of grammar points, a list of, let's say, topics, vocabulary, a list of functions and materials, you may divide this into, like, more or less, here it is a monthly period of time. If it were an intensive course, this would probably be a week long. But since this is an extensive syllabus for extensive teaching, this is a month. And in this way, each term, each semester can be divided into 3 such modules. And for teachers, from teachers' point of view, it's much easier to look at this and to see whether they have covered specific area than just to go by the list of things enumerated in the syllabus. So that's why, in a way, schemes of work are kind of a bridge by which we make sure that what we teach in the classroom is really what was suggested in the syllabus. So this, if you are a director of studies or if you are a teacher and you have to build the syllabus, then obviously you probably don't get just rid of old syllabus. Build on the basis of what you have, plus use can-do inventories such as English profile or ELG portfolio. Look at the course books. The course books now is very helpful, but it's risky just to teach the course book because it may not meet the needs of your students. Now, when you look at the syllabus, make sure that all the core items are there. Reject those which are not core. Make the syllabus completed of most important things. And of course, look at the relation between different levels. And very important, make sure that you know what is the core requirement, what is recognition requirement, and minimum requirement for each level. And most difficult, even when you talk about language content, not communicative can-dos, but language content, like, for example, present perfect. It is very important to teach yourself or your teachers, if you are director of studies, to translate it into can-dos, because this is much easier for the students to understand what they are learning or what they have learned. All the time you need to remember about needs analysis and feedback from students. Teach yourself how to go about it at the beginning of the course and then during the course. And of course, do feedback analysis and needs analysis during the course, because there is still time to change things, to improve the course. If you do evaluation of the course at the very end of the course, then it is too late for the students in a particular course. And if you're at school, remember to collect both students and teachers' feedback, and of course to consider it when you will revise the syllabus, when you prepare the same course, but then you'll be able to improve it. And basically, first of all, remember that all these elements have to be connected together, and you have to think about it. The last one is the real world, and this is what we are aiming at, unless you're preparing students for examination, but this is also the real world, it's just a very specific situation. So then remember that learners are individual learners. Even if we have a group, we need to look at them as individualities who may have slightly different needs, and we should be prepared to cater for those needs in as much as we are able to. So the content of the syllabus of what we teach should be adjusted to this. And of course, there should be this coherence. The coherence that we have been talking about between the curriculum or syllabus aims, so learning aims, what happens in the classroom, how you teach or how your teachers teach in the classroom, and the assessment system. As I mentioned previously, not only myself, but other schools also discovered that only once the assessment, they have adjusted the assessment to can-do descriptors, it turned out that teaching according to can-dos is easier, because otherwise it was in the air, it was not really practical. So when you do the assessment, the point to remember is definitely link it to curriculum aims. And when you assess both language, vocabulary, etc., and can-dos. And you can do it almost at the same time. You can have progress test. And progress test is in Poland. This is something that is traditional, that we are very good of it. And this is something that we should not forget about. We should just continue. We know how to do it, and we are not going to discuss it. But then there is assessment of skills, which we are not so good at. And this assessment should be based on can-do descriptors and should be done at different points of the course. At the end of the course, it should be, in fact, done continually by teacher in class. And on top of this, we should add self-assessment, which of course is also based on can-do descriptors. In all cases, assessment results should be recorded. Okay, so when we talk about can-do assessment, because we are only going to discuss this, there are basically two types of assessment that we can consider, or two ways rather in which we can assess. We can do progress assessment. Oh yes, this is a repetition, an assessment of skills. And of course, both progress assessment and assessment of skills, as we said, should be linked to syllabus or curriculum aims, and both focus on can-dos and language core content. Right, okay, I hope this is the right presentation. Okay, now this is the slide I've started talking about, assessment of skills, because this is what we're going to discuss. So when we talk about the assessment of skills, there are two ways of assessing. We can assess according to checklists of descriptors and or according to assessment tasks. And this is assessment for learning. This is not giving grades. I mean, we may assign grades, but this is not just to show the students how bad they are. This is to show to them what they have achieved and how they can achieve more. And this is an assessment which is continuous, which should happen in class, and is based on can-do descriptors. Now, checklist of descriptors may look like this. These are communicative objectives divided into at B1 level, and this is divided into listening and speaking, reading, writing, grammar and vocabulary. So grammar and vocabulary is also looked at here from the point of view of can-do descriptors, and the teacher during the course looks at different students, listens to them, and not only through the test, but when they do things during the classroom, assesses their competence. And the assessment may happen according to different scales. Here the suggestion is just for poor, good, or excellent. You may have a very simple checklist of descriptors, a very short list of descriptors that does not cover the whole term, but has been built on the basis of a week program or 2 weeks program that you do. And then here the suggested scale is from 1 to 5, where 1 is unsatisfactory, 5 is excellent. And again, you should do it a couple of times during the course, not once only. Then the other type of assessment is assessment tasks. So you not only observe students when they do specific activities, but you in fact build a task. You build a task on the basis through which your students will be able to show performance, to perform. And then you also need a set of criteria to assess how good they are in the task. So basically, they should know how to do the task. For example, to communicate at a hotel or do a telephone conversation. But now the question is, how good are they with it. And here it is useful to look at, well, this is just a sample task taken from one of the course book from Market Leader, just to show to you that, in fact, you do not need to invent the task. A lot of tasks are ready in the textbook. So this one is telephoning. It is A2, so relatively very low level. In a role play, students are supposed to call, receive calls, answer the calls, and there is student A who is calling someone in a company. The person is absent, so he leaves a message, and then the person calls back and they talk. So something very simple. And again, you as a teacher, when the students role play, you can assess their performance. Now, with this kind of performance, it is important to do it continually, almost either in every lesson or in every second lesson, because you are not able to assess all the students at the same time. Usually, this kind of activities would be done in groups or in pairs, and it would be difficult for you to focus on all the students. So it is good to choose to focus on 2 or 4 students during a lesson, just one student even, and look at him and assess his performance. And then next time assess someone else, so that, you know, step by step you assess all the group. These are the assessment criteria for this particular task. The criteria have been based on Council of Europe's descriptive banks. The links are given at the end of this webinar if you're interested, but then it's enough to go to the Council of Europe web page and write descriptor banks. Then you will find it. And here, the criteria that are not in the course book, these criteria cannot be found in Market Leader, but are very easy to adapt to this particular task. Discourse manager, whether the students can make themselves understood easily, very short utterances, whether they can just link groups of words with simple connectors, because this is A2, whether the pronunciation is clear enough, whether they can keep up the interaction, answer questions, and then how accurate in terms of grammar structure and range of vocabulary they are. So ideally, the teacher should have both these on one sheet of paper, so that he or she can look at the descriptors and assess students according to the descriptors. Now, in each case, as I said, it is important to design an assessment report. The assessment report should be simple. You have to select some kind of categories. For example, if you assess speaking, this usually you want to assess fluency, accuracy, which is grammar structures, then range, which is the range of the vocabulary, interaction, whether the students can ask questions, can answer questions, can keep up a conversation, start, finish the conversation, and coherence, linkers, and by, etc. It is nice to have detailed criteria, which are difficult just to think of by yourself. So it's much easier to adopt them from the document. And the criteria would be not only that he can speak, but shows a relatively high degree of grammatical control, for example. Now, this may be a simple teacher assessment report that one of the schools in Spain uses, when they have both can-dos and grammar areas on the same page, and students are assessed on a scale from 1 to 5. giving remarks here. These are assessment criteria for speaking that are usually used: fluency, accuracy, range, and interaction, the easiest ones. And and here on one page there is a kind of a form, rating form for the whole group, where you can you have a certain level like B2, you have categories and qualitative can-dos, how good it is, and the teacher have it at hand, can look at it, student can listen to the performance and can assess. So, well, we have discussed it. Now, self-assessment is something that that you should equip your student with. This is something that students usually they do not have in their traditional education. They do not know how to self-assess themselves, and this is something that which they really need in nowadays world. More and more, it is not enough nowadays to teach a certain portion of material to our students, because they have access to the internet. They are able to teach themselves. The problem only is how to teach them to look for the proper things, and how to teach them to assess their own performance. It is good if self-assessment is so-called criterion-based. Criterion-based means that there is a certain criteria, like, for example, fluency in speaking described, and not norm-based. Norm-based is the criterion that I remember was used in my school, in which one student was kind of compared to other students and was graded on the basis of how good his or her performance was against other students. And again, here you need the help of either portfolio descriptors or Council of Europe descriptors, but these are very easy to take from the web page. This might be a sample self-assessment short report, not for the whole course, not for even a big part of the course, but just for, let's say, a month or 2 months, where your students assess themselves whether they are good, and they know they are good, they are not sure, or they don't think they are good, and you assess them. You don't need to assess them every time, but from time to time they need the confirmation of your assessment. This is slightly more complicated. This is assessment of more skills here, but again, they assess themselves and then you assess them. Now, self-assessment can be introduced at various parts of the teaching learning process. It may be a part of placement test, when you can give the can-dos to students in their own language and ask them to self-assess. This raises the awareness in a wonderful way. This, of course, should be the part of initial needs analysis. Self-assessment should be done at the end of the lesson. It may be done at the end of each unit or module, at progress testing stage. You want to stop and test, and of course at the end of the course. The benefits of having self-assessment are such that students really become aware of their needs, of their present needs. They learn how to formulate their future needs and specify the areas of interest. In other words, they know what to look at, what to look for in the internet, and how to help themselves to the knowledge that they do have. It's only that there are so many things that it's very difficult to choose. And through self-assessment and can-do assessment, students are trained in assessing their real-life competences, which is very important. And then it is important that you as well, you as a teacher, assess them as well, because you either confirm or enter a discussion about how they self-assess themselves. So a summary of can-do assessment benefit would be that we discovered at least that both learners and parents see it as a very practical thing to introduce in the lesson, because they not only know how, I mean, what portion of material the children or they themselves as students covered, but practically what they have learned. And if you give them detailed criteria, they really know what it is about. Not only that they can write a postcard, but how well and in which categories they are better or worse. And of course, teachers become more focused on practical abilities of the learners. We are very busy. It may sound paradoxical, but it is very easy to forget about our learners' individual needs. We prepare lesson plan. We try to prepare it as well as we can. We try to make it as attractive as we can, as it may be, and we try to teach it. And it's very easy, in fact, to overlook certain things. So if we have lesson aims in terms of can-dos, if we test during the lesson, if we offer tasks which are testing tasks, not real tests, but where students can test what they have learned in terms of can-dos, if you use the can-dos during the lesson, it is also easier to remember that we are teaching can-dos, in fact, not just a course book all the time. This is a brief list of inventory of can-do descriptors that you may find with QR codes if they may come useful. The first one is just the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference, with all the descriptors. The second one is something very, very useful if you are starting or if you are a teacher who has to build the syllabus by yourself, or who has to find the proper descriptors. Also, if you're a director of studies, this is also very useful, because the portfolio uses very simple language, is divided into very simple categories, and it's very easy to take the descriptors that you would like to have to your own, and to adapt them to your own syllabus. And the portfolio is in different languages, like the CEFR. You may notice that the second link that I gave is the CEFR in Polish, translated already in 2003, so quite a long time ago. The portfolio is in very many languages. When you go to the page, you can discover that it's almost in every language. If you don't have means of writing it down, it's also enough to go into Google and to write Eaquals CEFR descriptors. Eaquals is this organization of schools, and the organization where members, well, part of the members are authors of CEFR, and they try to develop it, they try to help the schools to apply it in a practical way. So the final thing that I would like to remind you of is that in 2017, new sets of descriptors have been added, not for you to use it as mandatory, obligatory things, but if you need them. And these are reception descriptors for reception activities, productive interaction, and mediation descriptors. And you have probably noticed that the new Matura already uses mediation descriptors. So it's good to be just aware of that. I've been rushing through this webinar. Again, I'm very sorry about the technical problems. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'm afraid we ran out of the time. It's just 2 minutes, but you can either ask questions now or write to me. and we can discuss things. If you are interested in the presentation, please let me know, and the presentation will be sent to you. So thank you very much for your participation. Okay, so thank you very much. And as I said, I'm available not only at email, but Skype, Facebook, whenever. Thank you very much. And there's a question about the recording of the webinar to be available, and we will make it available. I've been promised, Martin has promised to make it available. So you will be able to have another look at it. And as I said, I can send things to you, the things I've been talking about, which were not in the webinar. Oh, yeah, I think Martin's already written that.